waves crashed gently against the Florida coastline, their rhythm steady, almost hypnotic. Beyond the guarded gates of Mar-a-Lago, the night was alive with the distant hum of political intrigue, the whispers of deals being made behind closed doors. Inside, the chandeliers glowed like captured sunlight, reflecting off polished marble floors. The air smelled of aged whiskey, fresh cigars, and the quiet weight of power. At the center of it all, in a private lounge tucked away from the noise, Elon Musk and Donald Trump sat across from each other. Two men who had shaped the modern world in ways no one could have predicted. Their conversation, at first, was exactly what one would expect. AI, space exploration, the 2024 election, the war on free speech. But tonight would be different, because sitting between them, barely swinging his feet under the chair, was a boy, AE A-XII. Most people didn't even know how to pronounce his name, let alone understand why he was here. He wasn't supposed to be. This was a meeting of titans, a room where decisions that could alter history were being made, and yet Elon Musk had brought his son. Figured he'd find it interesting. Musk had shrugged when Trump's assistant raised an eyebrow. Trump chuckled, swirling his glass of whiskey. Smart kid. Already has better taste than most politicians. At first, the discussion followed its expected course. Policy, technology, the economy. But then, the conversation took a turn, because AE A-XII, this quiet, observant child, leaned forward, looked Trump directly in the eye, and asked a question that neither of them saw coming. A question that made Donald Trump stop mid-sentence. A question that, for the first time in years, left him speechless. For a brief moment, the only sound in the room was the distant crash of waves against the shore. Donald Trump, a man who had stood toe-to-toe with world leaders, who had dominated debate stages, who had made entire rooms bend to his will with sheer force of personality, froze. Elon Musk didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His sharp, calculating eyes flickered between his son and the former president, watching, analyzing, absorbing every detail of the moment. Across the table, Trump leaned back slightly in his chair, gripping his glass a little tighter than before. His usual confidence didn't waver, not completely, but something shifted. His face, the face that had launched 1,000 headlines, was momentarily unreadable. AE A-XII sat still. His blue eyes locked onto Trump's with the quiet intensity of someone far beyond his years. His voice, calm and unwavering, cut through the space like a knife. "Are you afraid of being forgotten?" The words hung in the air, heavy, almost tangible. Trump let out a short breath, a small scoff escaping under it, like he was amused. But Musk knew better. This was no ordinary question. This was a challenge. Trump's grip on his whiskey glass loosened, his fingers tapping idly against the rim. "Kid," he said, his voice still carrying that familiar bravado, "I've got my name on buildings from here to Scotland. They'll be talking about me long after we're all gone. AE A-XII. He didn't blink. He tilted his head just slightly and replied, "That's not what I meant." Musk smirked. He saw it now, the shift, the crack, the moment where a boy, his boy, had forced a man like Trump into unfamiliar territory. Trump's eyes narrowed slightly, like he was re-evaluating the kid sitting across from him. "All right," he said, setting his glass down with a quiet clink. "What do you mean, then?" AE A-XII didn't hesitate. He had been thinking about this for a long time. 100 years from now, what will they actually say about you? He asked. Will they just remember your name? Or will they remember who you really were? The room went still. For the first time that night, Trump didn't have an immediate answer. And Musk knew that meant the question had landed. The man who had built an empire on always having the last word was thinking. Trump leaned forward now, resting his elbows on the table, fingers interlocked. His expression had changed. He wasn't just entertaining the question anymore, he was considering it. Musk could see it in his face, the weight of legacy, the battle between power and meaning, the quiet war every leader fought within themselves but never admitted. Trump tapped his fingers against the table, his tell. Musk had seen it before, in interviews, in negotiations, in moments where he was calculating his next move. Then, after a long pause, Trump exhaled. "Let me tell you something, kid," he said, his voice lower now, more measured. "The trick isn't making people remember your name. It's making them remember why you mattered." AE A-XII's gaze didn't waver. "And why do you think you mattered?" This time, Trump didn't lean back. He didn't chuckle, he just stared at the boy. Musk could see it. The rare moment where Trump was no longer performing. No cameras, no crowd, no script. Just the raw, unfiltered weight of a question that no one had ever asked him so directly. The man who had spent his entire life defining himself, branding himself, fighting for control over his own narrative, was now being asked if he even knew what that narrative really was. The seconds stretched. Musk could tell that Trump wasn't used to this. He was used to fights, debates, criticisms. But this was different. This wasn't an attack, it was a mirror. For a man who had always been larger than life, what part of him would actually last? Then, after what felt like an eternity, Trump spoke. His voice was quieter now. He wasn't speaking to the media. He wasn't rallying a crowd. He was answering honestly. "I woke people up," he said simply. AE A-XII nodded slowly. "But did they wake up the way you wanted them to?" Trump exhaled through his nose. He tapped his fingers against the table again. Musk smirked. This was getting interesting, because now, for the first time in years, Trump wasn't just speaking, he was thinking. For the first time in the entire conversation, Donald Trump wasn't leading. He wasn't dominating. He wasn't redirecting, overpowering, or spinning the narrative. He was thinking. The room remained dead silent except for the rhythmic tapping of Trump's fingers against the table. A telltale sign that his mind was working, running scenarios, calculating responses. He could deflect, sure. He could brush it off, laugh, say something about how the media had already decided his legacy. But that wouldn't satisfy the boy sitting across from him. AE A-XII hadn't come for rehearsed lines. He had come for the truth. Trump studied the kid for a long moment, his blue eyes sharp, searching. This wasn't an ordinary child. He was a Musk. The way he sat, the way he held eye contact without fear, without hesitation. It was like looking into the younger version of Elon Musk himself. Musk, for his part, remained silent, watching, waiting. He wasn't intervening. He was letting his son go toe-to-toe with one of the most formidable minds in modern history. And somehow, the kid was winning. Trump exhaled sharply, shaking his head as if trying to clear a thought he didn't want to have. Then he leaned forward, locking eyes with AE A-XII. "You think I should care?" he asked, his voice lower now, more deliberate. AE A-XII didn't blink. "I think you already do." A beat of silence. Then Trump smirked. But it wasn't the usual smug, triumphant smirk he wore on stage. This one was different, more self-aware. "Smart kid," he muttered. "You get that from your dad?" Musk finally spoke, his voice smooth, almost amused. "No," he said, leaning back. "He gets that from himself." Trump let out a short chuckle, shaking his head. But there was something in his expression now, something unfamiliar, something almost unsettled. Because he realized the kid was right. He did care. He cared about how history would remember him. He cared about not just winning battles, but winning the war against time itself. But for the first time in years, he was questioning something deeper. Did he actually get to choose how history would remember him? A moment of unexpected honesty. Trump leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "All right, tell me something," he said, eyes narrowing slightly. "You seem to have all the answers. What do you think people should remember me for?" AE A-XII tilted his head slightly, processing the question. Then, after a moment, he replied, "That depends. Do you want them to remember the fight or why you fought?" Musk exhaled slowly, impressed. That was a hell of a question. Trump's smirk faded. He had spent years, decades, fighting. Against the system. Against the establishment. Against the media, the critics, the people who said he couldn't do it. But had the fight itself become his identity? Would history remember him as a disruptor, a warrior, or just a man who never stopped throwing punches? And suddenly, for the first time in this conversation, Donald Trump had nothing to say. The energy in the room changed. The air felt heavier now, like something irreversible had shifted. The conversation had gone beyond politics, beyond power, beyond the surface-level debates they were used to. This was personal. Musk watched intently as Trump stared down at the table, fingers tapping slower now. Almost unconsciously, his other hand reached for his glass of whiskey. But this time, he didn't take a sip. He was listening. Musk smirked slightly. "Not used to that, are you?" Trump snapped his gaze back up. "Used to what?" Musk gestured between them. "Being the one who has to answer the questions." Trump scoffed, but didn't deny it. Instead, he turned back to AE A-XII. "All right, kid, since you're the genius here, what do you think I should have done differently?" AE A-XII didn't hesitate. "You should have asked yourself that question a long time ago." Trump's expression flickered, just for a second. Then he let out a low, quiet laugh. "Damn," he muttered under his breath, shaking his head. "You really are a Musk. The breakthrough?" "A chance to reflect?" Trump exhaled through his nose, rubbing his thumb over the edge of his glass. "You want to know the truth?" he asked, more to himself than to them. Neither Musk nor his son spoke. They knew the truth was already coming. After a long pause, Trump finally admitted, "I'm not afraid of being forgotten. I'm afraid of being remembered the wrong way." Musk's expression remained unreadable. But XAEX A-XII nodded as if he understood something that neither of them had fully grasped until now. "Then change it," the boy said simply. Trump blinked. "What?" XAEX and AIEO leaned forward. "If you don't like the way history is going to remember you, then do something about it now. You still have time." For the first time in years, Donald Trump wasn't thinking about the past. He was thinking about the future. The shift. A new realization. Trump let out a breath, looking between Musk and his son. "You know," he said, shaking his head, "I came here tonight thinking I'd be having a conversation with Elon Musk." Musk smirked. "And?" Trump pointed at XAE A-XII. "Turns out, I should have been talking to him." The boy gave a small smile. Then, for the first time all evening, Trump reached across the table and offered his hand to XAE A-XII. Not as a politician, not as a businessman, but as a man who had just been forced to see himself through someone else's eyes. And XAE A-XII took it. "Call to action. Engage the audience." And just like that, the conversation had shifted forever. Now, here's a question for you. If you could sit across from the most powerful people in the world and ask them one question that would shake them to their core, what would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's see who comes up with the most thought-provoking question. And if you're loving these deep, mind-blowing conversations, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because trust me, this story isn't over yet. See you in the next one. For the first time all night, Trump wasn't the one in the hot seat anymore. The conversation had shifted, but it wasn't over. XAE A-XII, the boy who had just made Donald Trump question his own legacy, now turned his gaze toward Elon Musk. The room, still thick with unspoken realizations, fell silent again. But this time, the weight of the moment belonged to Musk. Trump, still processing his own thoughts, picked up on the shift almost instantly. He leaned back, watching with mild amusement and genuine curiosity. "Well, this just got interesting," Musk smirked, swirling his drink, but his son's unwavering stare told him exactly what was coming next. And then XAE A-XII asked the question. "Dad, do you ever wonder if you're making the same mistake?" Musk's hand paused mid-sip. He set his glass down slowly. The energy in the room changed. Again. Trump's eyebrows lifted slightly. Even he hadn't seen that coming. "Same mistake as who?" Musk asked, his voice measured. XAE A-XII leaned forward, his expression eerily calm. "Him." He nodded toward Trump. Musk blinked. Trump let out a surprised "Ha!" but said nothing, letting this play out. For the first time in the conversation, Elon Musk was the one caught off guard. The moment that no one expected, Musk cleared his throat, buying himself a second to process. His son wasn't challenging Trump anymore. He was challenging him, and Musk knew this wasn't random. This was calculated, thought out. The boy had been waiting for this moment. Musk tilted his head. "You're going to have to be more specific, X." XAEX, XI, didn't hesitate. Trump said he was afraid of being remembered the wrong way. But what if your biggest mistake isn't how people will remember you? What if it's about what you're missing right now? Musk's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table. Trump sat forward, clearly entertained. Oh, I like this kid. Musk exhaled through his nose. And what exactly am I missing, X? X. AE A-XII didn't blink. Us. The word hit harder than anything else that had been said all night. Musk went still. Trump's smirk faded slightly. The room, the world, everything felt like it had just narrowed down to this single moment. XAEAX continued, his voice still calm, still unshaken. You talk about the future, about Mars, about AI, about humanity's next step. But have you ever thought about what it's costing you? Musk swallowed but said nothing. Trump let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. Damn, he glanced at Musk. Now this is something you can't code your way out of, buddy. Musk shot him a look, but the amusement didn't reach his eyes. Because XAEAXII wasn't done. Do you ever think about what you've missed? The boy asked. The birthdays? The time? The moments you can't get back? Musk exhaled slowly. He had expected a lot from tonight's conversation, but not this, not from his own son. Trump, now fully invested, leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. Let me guess, he said, eyeing Musk. You've got a million excuses for why it was all worth it, right? Musk's jaw tightened. Because Trump wasn't wrong. His entire life had been a relentless pursuit of progress. He had built companies, changed industries, pushed humanity forward. But in doing so, what had he left behind? And more importantly, who had he left behind? XAEAXII was waiting. For an answer. For honesty. For something Musk wasn't sure if he was ready to say out loud. The weight of truth. Musk leaned forward, resting his hands together, taking a slow, deliberate breath. And then he admitted it. Yes. XAE A-XI's face remained unreadable. Trump tilted his head, watching carefully. Musk continued, his voice quieter now. Yes. I think about it. Yes, I know what I've missed. He exhaled, his fingers tapping lightly against the table. But do I regret it? He looked directly at his son. I don't know. XAEAZIXI nodded, as if he expected that answer. Then let me ask you something else. Musk braced himself, because he knew by now his son's next question was going to be worse than the last. XAEAXII tilted his head. If I grow up to be like you, will I regret it? The words cut deeper than anything else that had been said tonight. Musk inhaled sharply. Trump muttered a quiet, damn. Because that question wasn't just about Musk. It was about legacy, about what really matters, about what kind of father Elon Musk was. The shift. The world's most powerful men had sat at this table tonight, discussing everything from politics to the future of civilization. But now, none of that mattered. Because in this moment, it wasn't about Mars, or Tesla, or Twitter. It was about a father and a son. And the unspoken truth that hung between them. Trump glanced between them, exhaling loudly. Then, in an uncharacteristically quiet voice, he said, Elon, I think your kid just checkmated you. Musk chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. Because he knew Trump was right. XAEAXII simply sat there, watching, waiting. And for the first time all night, Elon Musk wasn't thinking about the future. He was thinking about now. What do you think? Did XEAXXI just ask the one question Elon Musk can't answer? Would you sacrifice everything for progress, even if it cost you the people closest to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear what you would ask Elon Musk. And if this conversation shook you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because trust me, we're just getting started. For a long moment, Elon Musk didn't answer. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Even the steady hum of the ocean outside seemed distant now, drowned out by the weight of the words that had just been spoken. Across the table, XAEAXII didn't blink. His question still lingered in the air like an unshakable force. If I grow up to be like you, will I regret it? Musk exhaled through his nose, running a hand through his hair. Damn. He had faced some of the most brilliant minds in the world. He had debated AI, space colonization, and the future of humanity with the sharpest thinkers alive. But none of them had ever challenged him like this. None of them had ever forced him to look at himself this way. Trump, still leaning back in his chair, let out a slow breath, watching with clear amusement. "I gotta admit, Elon," he muttered, swirling his whiskey, "I came here tonight expecting fireworks. Didn't think the kid would be the one lighting them." Musk shot him a quick look, but there was no escaping the reality of the moment. Because his son was still waiting, and he deserved an answer. The realization, a conversation no one expected. Musk leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His voice, when he finally spoke, was lower than before. "You know," he started slowly, carefully choosing his words. "People think regret is about one big mistake. One moment you wish you could change." AE A-XII's gaze didn't waver. Musk exhaled. "But that's not really how it works. Regret isn't one thing, it's 1,000 little things." Trump's smirk faded slightly. Musk continued, his fingers tapping absently against the tabletop. "I regret the moments I wasn't there, the nights I was too busy, the birthdays I missed, the times I told myself I'd make up for it, and then never did." XAEX-XIIX. Expression remained unreadable. Musk's voice grew quieter. "But do I regret everything?" He shook his head. "No." A beat of silence. Then Musk leaned in, his eyes locking onto his son's. "Because if I had done things differently, I wouldn't be me, and I wouldn't be sitting here, across from you." XAE A-XII. A-XI tilted his head slightly. He was listening. Musk inhaled deeply. "I've spent my entire life trying to build something that outlives me, something that pushes humanity forward. That meant sacrifices." His voice softened. "It meant missing things I can't get back." XAE A-XIE finally spoke, his voice even. "So you think it was worth it?" Musk hesitated. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because he wasn't sure if he wanted to say it out loud. "The truth hits harder than expected." Trump let out a small scoff, shaking his head. "Kid's not letting you off the hook, Elon." Musk exhaled. Then, finally, he answered. "I don't know." XAE A-XII blinked. Musk leaned back, rubbing his face. "I don't know if it was worth it." Trump raised an eyebrow. Even he hadn't expected that level of honesty. Musk looked at his son again. "I made my choices, X, and I live with them, but I can't tell you if they were the right ones." XAEXEI was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something no one expected. "You know, I don't think that's true." Musk frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" XAEXEI folded his hands together on the table. "I think you do know." Musk's fingers stopped tapping. XAEXEI's voice was calm, steady. "You're Elon Musk. You make impossible decisions every day. You never move forward without knowing exactly what you're willing to lose." Musk exhaled slowly. Because his son was right. He had built rockets knowing they might explode. He had risked everything on Tesla when everyone told him it would fail. He had always known the cost. And suddenly the truth hit him like a freight train. He knew the answer. He had always known. But admitting it? That was something else entirely. The final challenge, a promise made. XAE A-XI leaned forward, his voice quiet but firm. "You just don't want to say it." Musk let out a slow, measured breath. Then, after a long moment, he gave the only answer he could. "Maybe you're right." XAE A-XI sat back, satisfied. Trump let out a short laugh. "Jesus, Elon, your kid just out-Musked you." Musk chuckled under his breath. "Yeah," he muttered, shaking his head. "He does that." XAE A-XI smirked slightly. Then, just as Musk was about to change the subject, his son spoke one last time. "So, what are you going to do about it?" Musk looked up. Trump's eyebrows lifted slightly. Even he was curious now. XAE A-XEI crossed his arms. "You said you don't know if it was worth it, so prove it." Musk exhaled. "How?" XAE A-XEI tilted his head. "Be there." The words hit harder than any question before. Be there. For the first time in years, Elon Musk wasn't being asked about Mars, or AI, or the next great innovation. He was being asked to simply be a father. The room fell silent again. Then Musk gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. a promise. XAE A-XII nodded back, as if to say, good. Trump, watching the exchange, finally broke the silence. Well, he muttered, reaching for his drink, I didn't expect tonight to turn into a damned therapy session. Musk smirked. Neither did I. XAE A-XII just sat back, his expression unreadable. But Musk knew. This wasn't just a conversation, it was a turning point. And for the first time in a long time, Elon Musk wasn't thinking about the next big thing. He was thinking about now. Now it's your turn. If you had the chance to sit across from Elon Musk and ask him one question that would shake him to his core, what would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's see who comes up with the most powerful question. If this conversation hit you, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because trust me, we're just getting started. For a long time after the conversation ended, no one moved. The weight of everything that had been said, the questions, the regrets, the unspoken truths, hung in the air like the last notes of a symphony, lingering long after the music had stopped. The ocean waves still crashed against the shore outside, steady, relentless. The world outside Mar-a-Lago carried on as usual, but inside that private lounge, something had shifted. Elon Musk sat back in his chair, fingers tracing the rim of his glass, his mind running through the night's conversation on a loop. He had built companies, shaped industries, pushed humanity forward. But had he been present for the things that truly mattered? Donald Trump, normally the loudest voice in any room, was uncharacteristically quiet. His signature smirk had faded into something more thoughtful. The former president had spent decades fighting to be remembered, to ensure that his name would never be erased from history. But tonight, for the first time, he had been forced to consider a different question. Would history remember him for the right reasons? An XAE A-XII? He simply watched. The boy who had turned the conversation upside down, who had challenged the most powerful men in the room, was still sitting there, his expression unreadable. But he had gotten what he came for. A promise. In the silence, Musk looked at his son. XAE A-XII didn't need to hear words. He didn't need some dramatic declaration or speech. He had spent his entire life observing his father, understanding how he thought, how he worked, and in Musk's eyes, he saw the answer he had been looking for. He would try. He would be there. It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't erase the past, but it was a start. For Musk, the realization wasn't about regret anymore. It was about what came next. XAE A-XII gave the smallest nod, the kind that only a father and son would recognize. He understood, and that was enough. Trump's final words. Trump leaned back, letting out a deep sigh, shaking his head. Damn, kid. He glanced at Musk, then back at XAE A-XII. I didn't come here expecting to be outmaneuvered by a 12-year-old. XAE A-XII smirked slightly. It wasn't that hard. Trump barked out a laugh. I like this one, he muttered, shaking his head before turning to Musk. Elon, if I were you, I'd start watching my back. Your kid's already 5 moves ahead of you. Musk chuckled under his breath. Yeah, he admitted, I know. Trump pushed back his chair, standing up and adjusting his suit. Well, he said, stretching his arms, I don't know about you two, but I need a drink after all that. Musk smirked. I thought you already had one. Trump grinned. Not enough. The mood lightened just slightly, but the impact of the conversation remained. This wasn't a debate to be won. It was a conversation that would stay with them, change them in ways they hadn't fully realized yet. A new beginning. As they stood to leave, Musk placed a hand on his son's shoulder. A simple gesture, one that meant more than words could say. XAE A-XII looked up at his father and, for the first time in a long time, he saw something different. Not just the genius, not just the entrepreneur, but a man, a father, who was willing to listen. They walked out together, side by side. And as the doors of Mar-a-Lago closed behind them, the most important conversation of their lives had just begun. Conversation doesn't end here. Now it's your turn. If you could ask one question to Elon Musk, Donald Trump, or even XAE A-XII, what would it be? Drop it in the comments below and let's see who can come up with the most powerful question of all. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because, trust me, this isn't the last time we'll talk about this. The future is just getting started.